Hey everyone, I'm new here but I've been lurking for a while. I never thought I'd actually be posting, but here I am. I'm a 36-year-old guy, married for 7 years to my wife, she's 28. We met when she was 20 and I was 28. Yeah, there's an age gap, but back then it never felt like a problem. She was bright, funny, and had this adventurous spark that made my life feel exciting again after years of grinding at a boring office job. For most of our marriage, I honestly thought we were solid. We didn't fight much, we traveled a lot, and we always told our friends we were that couple who had each other's backs. I work in IT, she's a graphic designer who freelances from home, so she's always had more flexibility in her schedule than me. But looking back now, I can see little cracks that I ignored. Like how she started spending more and more nights at working late at coffee shops with clients. Or how she got super secretive about her phone, like full-on turning the screen away from me when I'd sit next to her on the couch. I chalked it up to her being private or stressed. Even then, I remember a few months ago I joked, "Are you talking to someone else?" when she kept giggling at her phone. She laughed it off and said, "Please," as if anyone else would want me. And I believed her. At the time, I had no idea that was the first breadcrumb of a much bigger, much uglier story. It really started to hit me one Friday night. I got home early from work, like 6 p.m. early, and the house was empty. Not weird in itself, she'd sometimes go grab groceries or meet up with her sister. But what was weird was that her laptop was open on the dining table, and she's usually obsessive about closing it when she's not around. I wasn't snooping at first, honestly. I just saw a tab open with Google Maps and a pinned location I didn't recognize, some apartment complex across town. She'd told me she was going to her sister's place that evening, but her sister lives in the opposite direction. Then I noticed her browser history. Tons of how to clear location data iPhone, signs your husband suspects, and this one hit me like a punch, romantic hotels near me. I told myself, nah, maybe she's planning a surprise for me. But my stomach twisted. Something felt off. That night when she came back, around midnight, she smelled like a mix of expensive cologne and some overly sweet perfume I didn't recognize. When I asked, she laughed nervously and said, "Oh, I hugged Anna's boyfriend when we left, he wears too much cologne." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But that was the night I felt the first real crack in my trust. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was like living with a stranger who wore my wife's face. She started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets, literally taking it with her to the bathroom, silencing notifications, setting up a new password that she refused to tell me because privacy matters in marriage too. Then there were the sudden mood swings. Some mornings she'd be all over me, acting extra affectionate, making breakfast, kissing my neck while I shaved, telling me she missed me. And then later that same day she'd be distant, scrolling her phone with a smirk like she was texting someone way more interesting than me. One weird Saturday, she told me she had a work brunch with a client. She even dressed up like she was going to a wedding, heels, red lipstick, a dress I hadn't seen in years. I offered to drop her off since I was running errands, but she flat out refused, saying, "You'll embarrass me in front of them, they're high profile." That stung. Then I noticed she started withdrawing money in odd increments, like $100 here, $200 there. We share a joint account, and when I asked about it, she said she was buying Christmas gifts early. In June. It all felt like puzzle pieces that didn't fit. I told myself I was overthinking, but my gut was screaming. About 3 weeks after that work brunch, everything blew up, completely by accident. I was home sick one Tuesday, stomach bug, working from bed with my laptop. Around 11 a.m., I heard her phone buzz in the kitchen. She was supposedly at the library meeting a client. I don't normally touch her stuff, but I was half delirious and curious, so I walked over. Her phone was face up on the counter, unlocked, probably because she thought I'd be at work all day. And there it was, a string of messages from a contact saved as Ava, work. But Ava apparently liked to write things like, "Last night was insane. Thinking about you all morning." And, "Wish you were here in my bed right now instead of his." My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd throw up. At first, I thought maybe Ava was a friend joking around. But then I scrolled. There were photos. Photos of my wife in lingerie I didn't even know she owned, lying on a bed that definitely wasn't ours. Then came the audio message. I don't even know why I pressed play, but I did, and I heard my wife's voice, low, giggly, saying, "I can't stop thinking about you." I told him I was with Anna today. He's so clueless. I can't describe the feeling. My legs went weak. I sat down right there on the kitchen floor. My heart was pounding, my face was hot, and I kept thinking, no, 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 not her. She wouldn't. But she did. I sat on that kitchen floor for what felt like hours, just staring at her phone like it might suddenly tell me it was all some twisted joke. But the messages kept coming, little pings lighting up the screen. I miss your hands. When can we see each other again? I didn't respond. I didn't even know if I could speak. I just waited. I needed to see her face when I asked. That evening, she strolled in around 6:30 p.m., humming some song, holding a shopping bag like she'd just had the most normal day ever. I watched her hang her keys, put her bag down. She smiled at me, actually smiled, and said, "Hey, babe, feeling any better?" And in that moment, I almost broke. Because that smile looked so genuine. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to tip my hand. So I said, "Yeah, still a bit off." How was the library? She started in on some elaborate story about a client who wanted revisions, how the coffee was terrible, how she might stop taking those gigs. And I just kept nodding, my hands shaking under the table. Then I said, "Oh, by the way, your friend Ava called. She said last night was insane." The way her face froze, just for a fraction of a second, told me everything. Her smile vanished so fast it was like someone flipped a switch. She blinked at me, laughed nervously, and said, "Wait, what? Who's Ava?" I didn't say a word. I just reached over, picked up her phone from the counter, and slid it across the table toward her. Her hand hovered above it like she was about to grab a hot pan. She stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Finally, she said, "Okay, this is not what you think." I actually laughed, this bitter, shaky laugh, because isn't that what they all say? Not what you think. She launched into this frantic explanation. Ava was actually a guy named Evan, but they used the name Ava so I wouldn't get suspicious. That made me want to scream, like she was admitting to deception while trying to cover herself. She said it started innocently, that he was just someone she met at a design conference who understood her better than I did. I asked her point blank, "Are you sleeping with him?" She didn't answer. She just started crying, these big, dramatic sobs, and saying, "I didn't mean for it to happen, I didn't mean to hurt you, you've just been so distant." And in that moment, something in me snapped. Because I had been the one planning trips for us, trying to talk about having kids, asking how her day was, and she'd been sneaking around behind my back. I let her cry for a while, just sitting there in silence. Then I said, as calmly as I could manage, "Tell me everything. Right now. No more lies." She wiped her face and launched into this bizarre mix of excuses and half-truths. First, she said, it only happened once. When I didn't react, she shifted, "Okay, maybe a few times, but it didn't mean anything." Then, when I showed her one of the messages, "I can't stop thinking about last night," she stammered, "Okay, it's been going on for a few months, but you don't understand, he's been helping me with my career." Helping her with her career? By sleeping with her in some hotel? She tried to spin it like she was the victim. Said I'd been too focused on work, that I didn't appreciate her art, that she felt invisible in the marriage. And yeah, maybe I've been busy with work, but invisible. I literally rearranged my schedule so we could have date nights every week. I supported her quitting her office job to freelance. Then came the kicker, she said, "You're overreacting. This doesn't have to mean anything. We can get through this if you just forgive me." Forgive her? She was sitting there, mascara running, trying to minimize everything like I'd just caught her lying about buying new shoes, not blowing up our entire marriage. In that moment, I realized something chilling. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught. Her tears dried fast when she realized I wasn't instantly falling into her narrative. "You don't understand how lonely I've been," she snapped, slamming her hand on the table so hard the silverware rattled. That hit me like a slap. I shot back, "Lonely? You've been lying to me for months. You think sleeping with someone else is how you fix that?" She stood up, pacing, suddenly defensive instead of apologetic. "You're acting like you're perfect. You barely notice when I walk in the room." "Evan," she caught herself, eyes darting. "Ava noticed. And then the twist I didn't see coming." She hissed, "At least he makes me feel alive. You make me feel like a maid, a trophy you already won." I swear, I felt my heart physically ache hearing that. Because I'd done everything to make her feel loved. I cooked on weekends. I planned little trips. I bragged about her to anyone who'd listen. I said, "Low and cold, so your solution was to find someone else and lie to my face every single day." Her reply? "Maybe if you hadn't been so boring, I wouldn't have needed to." And that's when I felt it, that click in my brain. That point where heartbreak turns into something sharper, something like clarity. I was ready to end it right there, just tell her to pack her things and get out, but then she hit me with something that knocked the air out of me. She suddenly stopped pacing, folded her arms, and said, very calmly, almost smugly, "You know, if you try to make this ugly, I could tell people things about you. Things that wouldn't look good in court." I froze. "What the hell are you talking about?" She tilted her head. "You think anyone's going to believe you? You're the guy who works all the time, barely home. I could say you've been controlling, maybe even abusive. Emotional neglect. People will side with me." It felt like my stomach dropped into my shoes. This wasn't just guilt or panic speaking, this was calculated. I stammered, "Are you threatening me?" She didn't even blink. "I'm just saying, if you try to take the house or ruin my reputation, I'll ruin yours first." And that's when I realized I didn't really know the person sitting across from me. This wasn't my wife, at least not the one I thought I married. This was someone who could look me dead in the eye, after months of lying and cheating, and calmly weaponize the life we built together. I didn't say another word. I just got up, walked to the bedroom, and started packing a bag. I grabbed my old duffel bag from the closet, shoving in a couple days' worth of clothes with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She followed me down the hallway, still talking, first pleading, then threatening, then pleading again. "Wait, you don't have to do this." "Fine, go ahead, run away, see if I care." "You're being dramatic, we can fix this." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My head was pounding and my heart was doing that weird tight, fluttery thing that makes it hard to breathe. When I finally zipped the bag and slung it over my shoulder, she blocked the doorway. "If you leave, you're admitting you don't care about this marriage," she said, eyes wide and wet again, but her tone was sharp, rehearsed. I stared at her, exhausted and hollow, and said, "No. If I stay, I'm admitting I don't care about myself." I pushed past her. She shouted something as I left, I think it was, "You'll be back." But I didn't stop. I drove to a friend's place across town. He's been divorced himself, so when I showed up at his door at 1 a.m. looking like a ghost, he didn't even ask questions. He just handed me a beer and said, "Sit." I thought that was the end of it for the night. But at 3 a.m., my phone started blowing up, texts from her. And one of them made my blood run cold. I sat on my friend's couch, phone buzzing like a trapped wasp. I didn't even want to look at her messages, but something in me couldn't resist. The first few were predictable. "Please come home. We can talk. I love you. I messed up. Don't do this to us. You're overreacting, we can get help, therapy, whatever." Then came the shift. "If you tell anyone, you'll regret it." And then, "By the way, It's not just Evan. My hands went numb. I read that line over and over, thinking maybe I was hallucinating from lack of sleep. You think you know everything? LOL. There were others. Guess you weren't as careful as you thought, huh? Check your email. Maybe you're not the saint you think you are either. I jumped up, grabbed my laptop from the duffel. I hadn't checked my personal email in days. There it was, an anonymous message, sent an hour earlier. Subject line, "You deserve the truth." Inside were photos. Screenshots. A folder of images I didn't want to open but did anyway. Her with another guy. And another. Different hotels. Different months. Dates overlapping with times we'd been on vacation. I felt sick. I slammed the laptop shut, covered my face with my hands, and just sat there in the dark while my friend snored in the next room. It wasn't just one affair. It wasn't even two. It was like I'd been living in a marriage-shaped lie for years, and now the entire illusion had shattered in one night. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there with my head in my hands, replaying our entire relationship like a broken movie reel. Every late night, every work trip, every time she smiled at me and said she loved me, now it all felt poisoned. At one point, around 5 a.m., I went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror, and honestly didn't recognize the guy looking back. My eyes were red, my jaw was clenched so tight it hurt, and there was this hollow look, like someone had scooped out my insides. The next day at work I couldn't focus. I kept hearing her voice. It's not just Evan. Maybe you're not the saint you think you are either. That last part got under my skin. What the hell did that mean? Was she trying to gaslight me into thinking I'd done something wrong? Or was she setting me up for something worse? Later that afternoon, my phone rang. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a text. "If you don't come home, I'll make sure everyone knows how controlling you are. Think about your job. Think about your reputation." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was a full-on campaign. She wasn't content with cheating, she wanted control, even now, even after everything. I started writing everything down. Screenshots, dates, texts. I emailed copies to myself. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet, but I knew one thing, I wasn't going to let her destroy me. That night, after work, I went back to my friend's place and spread everything out on his kitchen table, my laptop, my phone, a notepad. I felt like some detective in a crime movie, piecing together a case. I went through months of our shared bank statements. Payments to ride-share services at odd hours. Charges at restaurants she'd never mentioned. A hotel booking 2 towns over on the same weekend she told me she was at her mom's. Then I dug deeper into her messages. I knew it was wrong to keep looking, but at that point, I needed the full truth. And what I found? God. She wasn't just cheating, she was mocking me to them. He thinks I'm working late. Poor guy has no clue. He's so boring sometimes, I need someone who makes me feel alive. Each line felt like another knife in the chest. But here's where the twist came in. Buried in one of those threads was a photo of her with one of those guys, in our house. On our bed. A timestamp from 3 weeks ago, on the day she told me she was at a design meeting. That broke something in me. I wasn't just betrayed, I felt invaded. My home, my safe place, had been turned into their playground. I called a lawyer that night. Didn't tell her. Didn't even tell my friend. Just quietly started setting up a meeting. Because if she wanted to play games, she had no idea I was done playing. The next morning, I got a text from her like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe. Let's talk tonight? I made your favorite lasagna." The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Lasagna. Like melted cheese could glue a marriage back together after all this. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to that lawyer meeting on my lunch break. I laid it all out, the messages, the photos, the threats. The lawyer didn't even flinch, just nodded, took notes, and said, "You have more than enough. But you need to move carefully." That word stuck with me, carefully. So I started planning. I opened a separate bank account. I quietly moved half my paycheck there. I documented everything. I even bought a small recording device, kept it in my pocket when I went home to pack more clothes, just in case she tried to twist things later. And sure enough, that night when I came by, she switched tactics again. She didn't cry this time. She didn't scream. She smiled, this eerie, too wide smile, and said, "I knew you'd come back. We can forget all this ever happened." I said nothing. I walked past her, went to the bedroom, started packing more of my things. And that's when she grabbed my arm and whispered, "If you leave me, I'll make sure you lose everything." But this time, I didn't flinch. I just looked at her and said, "We'll see." I didn't go back after that night. I finished packing while she hovered in the doorway, muttering threats and apologies in the same breath. I walked out without looking back, got in my car, and drove straight to a hotel. Over the next 2 weeks, with my lawyer's help, I filed for divorce. Quietly. Strategically. Every time she texted, sometimes sweet, sometimes venomous, I either ignored it or saved it as evidence. When she realized I wasn't budging, she exploded over text. "You'll regret this. You'll regret everything." But nothing came of her threats. The lawyer assured me she had nothing concrete, and with the proof I'd gathered, any lies she tried to spin would fall apart in court. That gave me my first real night of sleep in weeks. The emotional fallout was brutal, though. I went through every stage: rage, heartbreak, numbness, shame. I questioned myself, was I really so oblivious? Did I miss red flags on purpose? But over time, that self-blame faded. Because the truth is, someone who wants to betray you will find a way, no matter how much love or trust you give them. Now, months later, the divorce is almost finalized. I've got my own place, my own accounts, and, most importantly, my own peace. Some days I still wake up with that gut punch feeling, remembering her laugh, her lies, the way she twisted everything. But then I remember the last thing I said to her, "We'll see." We did. And I won't lie, I feel freer than I have in years. Advice for anyone reading this? If something feels off, trust your gut. Document everything. Don't let anyone gaslight you into doubting what you know in your bones. And above all, protect yourself first. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity or sanity. Thanks for reading, strangers. It hurts, but I'm going to be okay. And so will you, if you ever find yourself in my shoes. Stay sharp. Stay kind. And don't ignore the cracks. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new stories.